The delivery van's bumper struck Emma Rodriguez like a freight train. Her body launched 15 feet through freezing air. The little boy's scream piercing the Thanksgiving night. Her skull cracked against a curb, a sound witnesses would never forget. 3 days later, she opened her eyes. A man in a $10,000 suit stood over her hospital bed. Salt and pepper hair, cold gray eyes that had once signed the papers destroying her life. Why would you risk your life for a stranger? David Chambers asked softly. Emma's breath caught. She knew exactly who he was. He didn't recognize her at all. This waitress was Dr. Emma Rodriguez, the whistleblower who tried to expose his pharmaceutical empire 3 years ago. The woman his legal team had systematically destroyed. What she didn't know was that the 7-year-old boy she'd saved was his only grandson, and the truth connecting them would detonate both their lives. But first, let me show you how a Thanksgiving miracle became a reckoning neither of them saw coming. Before I continue, I need you to answer something. If you woke up in a hospital bed and discovered the person who destroyed your career, your reputation, your entire life was standing over you, would you reveal yourself immediately? Or would you stay hidden and protect what little you have left? Drop your answer below and kindly hit the subscribe button. Because this Thanksgiving story isn't about gratitude. It's about a reckoning 3 years in the making. And what happens when the universe forces 2 people to face a debt that can never be repaid. Also, drop your city. I want to see where my truth seekers are watching from tonight. November 23rd, 9:47 p.m. Riverside Diner hummed with the quiet energy of people who had nowhere else to be on Thanksgiving night. Emma Rodriguez moved through the tables with practiced efficiency. Coffee pot in one hand, order pad in the other. The faded burgundy uniform clung to her thin frame. She'd lost 20 pounds since taking this job. The kind of weight loss that comes from choosing between groceries and rent. More coffee, Mr. Peterson? She refilled the elderly man's cup without waiting for an answer. He came in every Thursday night, always ordered the turkey special on Thanksgiving, always left exactly $3.17 as a tip. You're a lifesaver, Emma, he said, fumbling with a pill bottle. These new heart medications, I can never remember. Her eyes flicked to the label, warfarin. She noticed the cranberry juice beside his plate, her jaw tightening. Mr. Peterson, you might want to switch to water tonight, she said carefully. Cranberry juice can interfere with blood thinners, increases bleeding risk. He blinked at her. How'd you know? Just something I read once. She smiled, already moving away, heart pounding. Stupid, careless. She couldn't afford to reveal what she knew. The diner smelled like reheated turkey, burnt coffee, and the faint chemical tang of industrial cleaner. Behind the counter, the television played the 4th quarter of a Lions game, volume low. The jukebox in the corner hummed an old Patsy Cline song. Outside the plate glass windows, snow had started falling, fat, lazy flakes that glowed orange under the streetlights. Emma's feet ached in the worn sneakers she'd resoled twice herself. Her lower back screamed from the double shift, 6 a.m. to 10 p.m., with a 30-minute break she never actually took. But she needed every hour, every tip. The numbers haunted her. $94,217 in legal debt. $1,247 in her checking account. Rent due in 6 days. $1,200 even. She was $17 short. In the break room, her locker held 3 things that mattered. An extra pair of socks, a photo she kept face down, and a silver chain with a ring she never wore. Emma pulled it out during her smoke break. Let the metal warm in her palm. Her medical school ring. Johns Hopkins, class of 2019. The engraving inside read, Primum non nocere. First, do no harm. She'd done no harm, and it had destroyed her. Tucking the ring back inside her shirt, Emma caught her reflection in the locker's magnetic mirror. 31 years old, looking 40. Hollow cheeks, dark circles, gray threading through her black hair. She barely recognized herself anymore. Good. That was the point. Her hands moved automatically to the sink, scrubbing with the methodical precision of surgical prep. 30 seconds. Interlaced fingers under the nails. Old habits died hard, even when the operating room was 3 years and a lifetime away. The photo in her locker showed a different woman. Dr. Emma Rodriguez in navy scrubs, stethoscope around her neck, standing in the Boston Medical Center ER. Confident, purposeful, whole. That woman was gone. Emma, table 6 needs a check. Her manager's voice cut through her thoughts. She shoved the locker closed, grabbed her apron, and headed back onto the floor. The coffee was bitter on her tongue. The uniform's polyester scratched her neck, and through the window, the snow fell harder. Outside, a family was parking their SUV. A little boy in a Patriots jersey climbing out of the back seat. Emma had 15 minutes left on her shift. 15 minutes before everything changed. The cold hit Emma like a slap when she stepped outside for her 10 p.m. smoke break. She didn't actually smoke, hadn't in 5 years, but she needed the air, needed 10 minutes where no one could ask her for anything. The alley behind Riverside Diner opened onto Harbor Street, where Thanksgiving traffic had thinned to occasional cars and delivery vans making late runs. Snow swirled in the orange glow of streetlights, already accumulating on the cobblestones. Emma leaned against the brick wall, breath fogging in the freezing air. Her ribs ached from carrying trays all day. Her feet throbbed, but she had $43 in tips folded in her apron pocket, and that meant a child's laughter cut through the night. She looked up. The family from the SUV. Parents unloading grocery bags, a grandmother clutching a pie carrier, and a little boy in a blue Patriots jersey bouncing a small football. Careful, Tyler. The mother's voice carried across the street. Stay on the sidewalk. But Tyler was 7, full of energy, and the football had other plans. It bounced off his hands, hit the curb, rolled directly into the street. I got it. Tyler darted after it. Emma saw 3 things simultaneously. The football, bright orange against the dark asphalt. Tyler, small and fearless, running into the road. And the delivery van speeding around the corner. Driver's face illuminated by the blue glow of his GPS. Completely unaware. Time fractured into crystalline fragments. Her body moved before her mind could catch up. Every instinct screamed move and her legs were already running. Her worn sneakers hitting wet pavement, arms pumping, lungs burning in the cold air. Tyler bent down to grab the football. He was exactly in the van's path. The driver still hadn't seen him. Get back. Emma's scream tore from her throat. 3 feet away. 2 feet. The van's headlights flooded her vision. The engine's roar filled her ears. She grabbed Tyler's shoulders and hurled him toward the sidewalk with every ounce of strength she possessed. His mother's scream merged with the squeal of brakes. The van's bumper caught Emma's left hip, spinning her sideways. She felt the impact through her entire body. A sharp, brutal crack that sent her flying. The world tilted, spinning in a kaleidoscope of streetlights and snow and darkness. She hit the pavement hard. Her skull cracked against the curb with a sound like breaking glass. Pain exploded behind her eyes, white-hot, blinding, all-consuming. But even as her vision grayed, her mind automatically cataloged. Suspected pelvic fracture, probable concussion, potential internal bleeding. She tasted copper, blood from where she'd bitten through her tongue. The cold seeped through her uniform, mixing with something warm spreading beneath her head. Voices erupted around her, footsteps running, the mother sobbing, clutching Tyler. The van driver stammering. I didn't see him, I didn't see. Someone call 911. Oh my God, is she breathing? Don't move her. Don't move her. Emma tried to speak, tried to tell him she was fine, but her lips wouldn't form words. The world faded in and out like a failing signal. She could see Tyler standing there, football clutched to his chest, tears streaming down his face, completely unharmed. Good. That was good. A man's voice, urgent and commanding. I'm a doctor. Everyone stepped back. Hands on her neck, checking her pulse. She's tachycardic. Pupils unequal. Possible skull fracture. But that wasn't right. Emma wanted to correct him. She was the doctor. She needed to assess. Sirens wailed in the distance, growing closer. Stay with me, the voice commanded. Can you hear me? What's your name? Emma Rodriguez, she tried to say. Dr. Emma Rodriguez. But the darkness swallowed her whole before the words could escape. The last thing she heard was Tyler's small voice. Is the waitress lady going to die? And then nothing. 3 days of nothing. Until she opened her eyes and saw a face from her nightmares standing over her hospital bed, asking a question she couldn't possibly answer. The first thing Emma registered was pain. It radiated from her skull in waves, each pulse synchronized with her heartbeat. Her left side felt like it had been hit with a sledgehammer. Breathing hurt, thinking hurt, existing hurt. The second thing was the beeping. Heart monitor. Steady rhythm. She was alive. The third thing was the sterile smell, antiseptic latex, industrial laundry detergent. Hospital. She was in a hospital. Emma forced her eyes open. White ceiling tiles. For pole to her right. Private room. That was wrong. She had no insurance, couldn't afford. You're awake. A nurse appeared in her field of vision, young, competent looking. Easy, Emma. Don't try to sit up. You have a severe concussion, 3 broken ribs, pelvic contusion, and we had to staple your scalp wound. You're lucky to be alive. Emma's voice came out as a croak. How long? 3 days. You've been drifting in and out, but this is the first time you've been truly conscious. The nurse checked her foreline. You're at Boston General. VIP suite, actually. I can't afford. It's handled. The nurse smiled. The gentleman whose grandson you saved is covering everything. Full coverage, no expense spared. He's been here twice a day checking on you. Actually, she glanced at the door. He's outside right now. Asked to be notified the moment you woke up. Should I? No. Panic spiked through Emma's chest. Wait, I need. But the door was already opening. David Chambers walked in. The world stopped. Emma's heart slammed against her broken ribs. Her pulse hammered in her ears, so loudly she was certain the monitor would betray her. Cold sweat broke out across her skin, despite the hospital warmth. He looked exactly the same. 58 years old, salt and pepper hair perfectly styled, gray eyes that had once stared at her across a deposition table while his lawyers shredded her character. He wore a black cashmere coat over a charcoal suit that probably cost more than she made in 6 months. David Chambers, CEO of Chambers Pharmaceutical Group, the man whose empire she tried to expose, the man whose legal team had systematically destroyed her career, her reputation, her entire life. And he was looking directly at her with absolutely no recognition. Ms. Rodriguez. His voice was softer than she remembered, rough with emotion. I'm David Chambers. Tyler. The boy you saved is my grandson. Emma couldn't breathe, couldn't speak. Her entire body was locked in place, waiting for the moment his eyes would widen, when he'd remember Dr. Emma Rodriguez from the whistleblower case, when everything would. But he just stood there, studying her face with something that looked like wonder. I've been waiting 3 days to ask you something, he said quietly. He pulled a chair close to her bed, sat down, his eyes never leaving hers. Why would you risk your life for a complete stranger? The question hung in the air between them. Emma's mouth open, closed. She had no answer, at least none she could give him, because she'd taken an oath once. First, do no harm, because she'd been trained to run toward danger, not away from it. Because every life she saved was penance for the system she couldn't fix and the patient she'd failed. Because the child was innocent, and she'd stopped being able to let innocent people suffer 3 years ago when his lawyers had destroyed her for trying to do exactly that. Her voice was barely a whisper. I just reacted. David leaned forward, his gaze intense, searching her face. Have we met before? There's something about you that seems... No. The word came out too quickly, too sharp. Never. He frowned, clearly unconvinced, but nodded slowly. Tyler wants to thank you himself. My daughter-in-law is beside herself with gratitude. You saved our entire family that night. Emma closed her eyes. The irony was suffocating. I'm going to take care of everything, David continued. Medical bills, lost wages, whatever you need. It's the least I can do for the woman who saved my grandson's life. When Emma opened her eyes, he was still watching her with that strange, searching expression. Thank you, she managed. But her mind was screaming. You need to leave. Now, before you figure out who I am. The door clicked shut behind David Chambers. Emma's breath came in short, panic gasps that made her broken ribs scream. Her hands trembled against the hospital sheets. He'd been inches away, staring directly at her, and he hadn't known. 3 years, $94,000 in legal debt, a medical license revoked, a career destroyed, an identity erased, and he didn't even remember her face. But he would. The moment his assistant pulled her hospital records, cross-referenced her name with the insurance database, ran a basic background check, he'd know exactly who she was. 24 hours, maybe 48 if she was lucky. Emma's mind spiraled back, dragged by memory to a place she'd spent 3 years trying to escape. 3 years ago, at the Boston Medical Center, Dr. Emma Rodriguez, 28 years old ER physician, was staring at a medication chart that made her blood run cold. A 72-year-old patient, post-surgical infection, the attending physician, a board member with 30 years of tenure, had prescribed a drug interaction that would be fatal within hours. Dr. Rodriguez signed off on these orders. I can't. This combination will cause cardiac arrest. We need to. The patient's family is difficult. We're managing them. Sign the orders. I won't falsify. But the patient died anyway. And when Emma filed her mandatory incident report, everything changed. The hospital's primary pharmaceutical supplier, Chambers Pharmaceutical Group, the board member, David Chambers' college roommate, the investigation, buried under legal maneuvering and corporate pressure, Emma's whistleblower lawsuit, destroyed by Chambers' legal team, her medical license, revoked on fabricated ethics violations, her career erased. David Chambers hadn't attended the depositions personally, hadn't needed to. His lawyers had handled everything. But his signature was on the settlement offer she'd refused. His company had orchestrated her destruction. Back to the present. Emma's eyes snapped open. 48 hours before he discovered the truth, and she had absolutely nowhere to run. David Chambers stood in the doorway of Tyler's bedroom, watching his grandson sleep. The boy's chest rose and fell peacefully, a Batman nightlight casting soft shadows across his face. No bruises, no broken bones. Alive, because a waitress he'd never met had thrown herself in front of a speeding van. He's fine, David. His daughter-in-law, Jennifer, appeared beside him with 2 cups of tea. Thanks to her. I keep thinking about what could have happened if... Don't. David's voice was rougher than intended. He took the tea, didn't drink it. She saved him. That's what matters. But something else mattered too. Something he couldn't name. Those eyes. Dark, intelligent, haunted. The way she'd looked at him in that hospital room. Not with gratitude or awe like most people regarded billionaires. With something that looked almost like recognition, fear. He'd built an empire by reading people. 30 years in pharmaceuticals, navigating boardrooms and hostile takeovers and regulatory battles. He knew when someone was hiding something. Emma Rodriguez was hiding something. "Marcus," he said into his phone an hour later, standing in his home office overlooking Boston Harbor. "I need a background check. Emma Rodriguez, currently employed at Riverside Diner. Complete employment history, education, medical records, if accessible." His assistant's voice came back cautious. "Sir, medical records are sealed without consent. Privacy laws. Do what you can legally. I want it by tomorrow." The file arrived the next morning. Thin. Too thin. Employment history showed 3 years at Riverside Diner. Before that, nothing. A gap that stretched back like a black hole, swallowing whatever she'd been before. Education. No records found. Medical history. Sealed by court order. Court order. That was interesting. David stared at the sparse document, unease crawling up his spine. People didn't seal their medical records unless they had something to hide. People didn't have 3-year employment gaps unless something catastrophic had happened. "David, stop lurking in your office and come have breakfast." His mother's voice carried up the stairs with the authority of someone who'd raised him to respect exactly one person on earth. Her. Eleanor Chambers sat at the kitchen table reading the Boston Globe, still elegant at 82. She took one look at David's face and set down her newspaper. "You're obsessing about the waitress." "I'm grateful to the waitress." "You're investigating her." Eleanor's eyes, the same gray as his, missed nothing. "I know that look. You think she's hiding something." David sat across from her, rubbed his face. "There's a gap in her history. 3 years. Before that, nothing. Medical records sealed by court order. Maybe she survived something terrible and deserves privacy. Or maybe you're so used to suspicious motives that you can't recognize simple heroism when you see it." Eleanor folded her hands. "That woman threw herself in front of a van to save your grandson. And you're what? Trying to find dirt on her." "I'm trying to understand her." "Why?" "Because those eyes haunted him. Because something in her face triggered a memory he couldn't quite grasp. Because the way she'd flinched when he'd entered her hospital room had looked like terror, not surprise." "Court-sealed medical records," Eleanor said quietly, "often involve whistleblower cases, wrongful termination lawsuits, people who spoke up and got destroyed for it." David's head snapped up. "What? 3 years ago, that young doctor who tried to expose the medication error at Boston Medical, the one your legal team buried." Eleanor's voice was gentle, devastating. She was around Emma's age. "I remember thinking how brave she was, how tragic that." "We protected the company," David said automatically. "Protected thousands of jobs. One disgruntled employee making unsubstantiated claims. Your lawyers called her mentally unstable, destroyed her career, got her medical license revoked on fabricated ethics violations." Eleanor stood, placed a weathered hand on his shoulder. "You protected your pride, David, and your partnership with that hospital board member. Don't confuse that with righteousness." The kitchen felt suddenly too small, too warm. "That doctor," David said slowly. "What was her name?" But Eleanor was already walking away. "If you don't remember her name," she called back. Maybe that's the problem. The hospital discharge papers listed her bill total. $127,483.19. Paid in full. Zero balance. Emma stared at the document, hands trembling. Beside it, a cream-colored envelope with her name written in elegant script. She didn't want to open it. Opening it made it real. Inside, a cashier's check for $5,000. A handwritten note on expensive cardstock. "Ms. Rodriguez, please accept this small token of gratitude for recovery time. You gave my family an invaluable gift. Allow me to help with your healing. David Chambers." $5,000. Emma's entire body went cold, then hot, then numb. The check blurred in her vision. She could pay rent, buy groceries, replace her broken phone, get her car fixed, stop drowning for one goddamn month. Blood money. That's what this was. Payment from the man who destroyed her life, who had no idea he was paying his victim. Emma, you okay? Mariana, her fellow waitress from Riverside, poked her head into the apartment. Brought you soup. You look terrible. Emma showed her the check mutely. Mariana whistled. Holy shit. That's Emma. That's like winning the lottery. You can breathe for once. I can't accept this. Why the hell not? You literally saved his grandson's life. You almost died doing it. You deserve. You don't understand. Emma's voice cracked. This man 3 years ago. But how could she explain? The depositions, the lawyers, the systematic destruction of her reputation? The way his legal team had painted her as mentally unstable, ethically compromised, a disgruntled employee making false accusations? Mariana sat beside her, wrapped an arm around her shoulders. Whatever happened 3 years ago, right now you have $117 in your account and rent due in 4 days. Pride doesn't pay bills, honey. Emma closed her eyes, hated that Mariana was right, hated that she was actually considering taking money from David Chambers. Take it, Mariana said firmly. Use it. Survive. That's what you do best, right? Survive. After Mariana left, Emma opened her laptop, a 5-year-old machine held together with duct tape and hope. She typed, David Chambers family. The search results loaded slowly. There, a Boston Globe article from 2.5 years ago. Chambers pharmaceutical CEO loses daughter to medical error. Emma's breath stopped. Rachel Chambers, age 34, died from post-surgical complications at Boston Medical Center. Medication interaction. The investigation was inconclusive. Emma's hands shook so hard she could barely click the link to the full article. Date of death, March 17th, 2.5 years ago. She opened another browser tab, pulled up her old email account, the one she'd abandoned after the lawsuit. Scrolled back through sent messages until she found it. Her incident report, filed September 22nd, 3.5 years ago, 6 months before Rachel Chambers died. The room tilted. Her report had been about a medication error at Boston Medical Center, a protocol violation that would kill someone if not corrected. She'd screamed about it, fought for it, demanded investigation. And David Chambers' legal team had buried it, delayed the investigation, pressured the hospital to discredit her, protected his corporate partnership. 6 months later, his daughter died from the exact same error Emma had tried to expose. Emma grabbed the trash can and vomited, and she could breathe again. She stared at Rachel Chambers' photograph on the screen. Dark hair, kind eyes, 34 years old. Dead because the system had chosen corporate interests over patient safety. Dead because Emma's warning had been silenced. Dead because her own father had valued his pharmaceutical empire more than the truth. And now that same father was leaving $5,000 checks for the woman who tried to save his daughter before he destroyed her. The universe had a sick sense of irony. Emma was refilling salt shakers when David Chambers walked into Riverside Diner. 7 days since her hospital discharge. 7 days of jumping at every footstep, expecting his assistant to appear with proof of her identity. 7 days of terror and waiting. And here he was, Ms. Rodriguez. He approached the counter, and she noticed customers turning to stare. David Chambers in his $1,000 coat, looking completely out of place among the cracked vinyl booths and flickering fluorescent lights. Emma's heart hammered. She forced her voice steady. Mr. Chambers, how can I help you? I wanted to see how you're healing. His eyes scanned her face, the fading bruises, the surgical staples still visible at her hairline. Are you in pain? I'm fine. You should still be resting. Bills don't pay themselves. The words came out sharper than intended. David's expression softened. That's actually why I'm here. Tyler, my grandson, has been asking about you nonstop. He wants to thank you properly. My family is hosting a belated Thanksgiving dinner this Sunday, and we'd be honored if you'd join us. Every muscle in Emma's body locked up. Dinner. At his house. Hours in close proximity where he could study her, question her, figure out who she really was. I don't think. Please. Something vulnerable flickered across his face. You saved my grandson's life. Let us show our gratitude properly. Let Tyler see that you're okay. He's been having nightmares that you died. The request was a trap disguised as kindness. Refuse, and she'd seem suspicious, ungrateful. Accept, and she'd be walking into the lion's den voluntarily. Emma swallowed hard. What time? The Chambers estate in Newton was obscene. Gates circular driveway. A colonial mansion that could house 20 families. Emma's battered Honda looked like a tin can in the parking area next to Mercedes and Teslas. She'd worn her only nice dress, black, 3 years old, slightly too big now. Her medical school ring hung beneath the neckline on its silver chain, hidden. A reminder of who she'd been, who she still was, underneath the survival. David answered the door himself. Emma, thank you for coming. The house smelled like roasted turkey and apple pie, warmth and wealth and everything she'd lost. Emma, Tyler bounded down the stairs, all 7-year-old energy and Patriots jersey. He crashed into her, hugging her waist. You came. Grandpa said you saved my life, that you're a hero. Emma's throat tightened. She knelt to his level, ignoring the protest from her healing ribs. I'm glad you're okay, Tyler. Want to see the bruise I got? It's purple. He started lifting his shirt. Emma's hands moved automatically, gently examining the fading contusion on his left side. Healing well. Any pain when you breathe deep? Tyler demonstrated an exaggerated breath. Nope. Good. You're following up with your pediatrician in 2 weeks, right? Just to make sure. She looked up. David was watching her with an unreadable expression. How did you know he needed a follow-up? His voice was carefully neutral. Emma's mind raced. The hospital mentioned it. Standard procedure for impact injuries. You remembered the specific timeline. I'm good with details. The dinner was torture. Jennifer, Tyler's mother, kept thanking her with tears in her eyes. Eleanor, David's mother, watched her with a knowing expression that made Emma's skin crawl. Tyler sat beside her, chattering about school and football, and how he was going to be a hero like her when he grew up. And David. David sat at the head of a table, asking gentle questions that felt like interrogation. Have you always lived in Boston? Worked here a few years. Where did you grow up? Connecticut? True. Vague. Any family in the area? Not anymore. Also true. Tyler mentioned you knew exactly how to check his bruising. Do you have medical training? The table went quiet. Emma met his eyes. I pay attention. Google helps. Google. David's smile didn't reach his eyes. Of course. Tyler, oblivious to the tension, grabbed Emma's hand. Grandpa, show her the picture of Aunt Rachel. Emma looks kind of like her, right? The world stopped. Jennifer inhaled sharply. Eleanor set down her fork with a soft clink. David's face went carefully blank. Tyler, that's not. Who's Aunt Rachel? Emma asked, though she already knew, though the question tasted like poison. My mom's sister, Tyler said. She died before I was really born. But Grandpa has her picture in his office. She was a doctor like. Tyler. David's voice was sharp. Go wash your hands. Now. The boy scurried away, confused. Silence stretched like broken glass. I'm sorry, Jennifer whispered. He doesn't understand. It's fine. David stood abruptly. Emma, could I speak with you privately? In my office? It wasn't a question. Emma followed him down a hallway lined with family photos. She glimpsed Rachel in several, dark hair, bright smile, graduation photo in medical scrubs. The sister Tyler would never really remember. David's office was all leather and mahogany. He closed the door. "You're very good at deflecting questions," he said quietly. "I'm a private person. You're a mystery." He moved closer, studying her face. "And I don't like mysteries, Ms. Rodriguez. Those eyes, I keep thinking I've seen you before. Not at the diner. Somewhere else. Somewhere important." Emma's pulse thundered. "You're mistaken." "Am I?" He was close enough now that she could see the gray in his stubble, smell his expensive cologne. "Because my instincts tell me you're hiding something. And my instincts are rarely wrong. Maybe some things deserve to stay hidden. Or maybe," David said softly, "some truths need to come to light, even when they're painful." The irony was suffocating. Emma turned toward the door. "Thank you for dinner, Mr. Chambers. But I should go." "Emma." She stopped and on the doorknob. "Whoever you are," he said, "whatever you're running from, I'm going to find out. Not to hurt you, to understand you. Because the woman who saved my grandson deserves to be understood." Emma left without answering. Because what could she possibly say? Emma's apartment was a study in survival. 400 square feet, radiator that barely worked, bathroom sink that dripped constantly. The kind of place you lived when you'd lost everything and were clinging to the bottom rung by your fingernails. She made it to the bathroom before the panic attack hit. Hands braced on the sink, breathing in short gasps, vision graying at the edges. Tyler's innocent question echoed. Aunt Rachel, who died. Rachel Chambers, dead at 34 from the error Emma had tried to expose. The error David's legal team had buried. When Emma could breathe again, she collapsed on her mattress. No bed frame, just a double mattress on the floor with worn sheets. Her laptop sat beside her. She opened the file she'd kept for 3 years. Evidence. Documentation. The story she'd never been able to tell. Dr. Emma Rodriguez, Emergency Medicine, Boston Medical Center. Hopkins graduate, top of her class. Fast-tracked to attending physician by 27. Her future had been luminous. Then came September 22nd, the day everything ended. An elderly patient post-op. The attending physician, Dr. Marcus Webb, hospital board member, 30 years of untouchable tenure, prescribed a medication combination Emma recognized immediately as fatal. Drug interaction that would cause cardiac arrest within hours. Dr. Webb, this prescription will kill. Sign off on it, Rodriguez. The family is litigious. We're managing the situation. I can't falsify. You're green. You don't understand hospital politics. Sign the goddamn orders. She'd refused. Filed an incident report. Demanded investigation. The patient died anyway. Cardiac arrest. Exactly as Emma had predicted. Then the real nightmare began. Dr. Webb was personal friends with David Chambers. Their families vacationed together. Webb sat on the advisory board of Chambers Pharmaceutical, received generous consulting fees. The hospital's primary drug supplier, Chambers Pharmaceutical Group. Emma's incident report threatened that entire ecosystem, so they destroyed her instead. Investigation found no wrongdoing. Emma was labeled emotionally unstable, unable to handle pressure. Whispers that she'd fabricated claims due to personal vendetta against Dr. Webb. Ethics complaints materialized from nowhere. Patient privacy violations she never committed. Falsified documentation she never filed. David Chambers' legal team handled it all with surgical precision. In 6 months, Dr. Emma Rodriguez ceased to exist. License revoked. Hospital privileges terminated. Her name became toxic. No medical facility would touch her. $94,000 in legal fees trying to fight it. She'd lost everything for telling the truth. Maybe they were right, Emma whispered to her empty apartment. Maybe I should have stayed quiet, kept my head down, survived. Maybe silence would have been easier. Maybe she'd been wrong to fight. Her hand closed around the silver chain at her neck, pulled out the medical school ring. Primum non nocere. First, do no harm. She tried. God, she tried. Her laptop screen glowed in the darkness. The browser still displayed Rachel Chambers' obituary. Died March 17th. Post-surgical complications. Medication error. Emma's hands shook as she pulled up her old incident report. Read the date again. Filed September 22nd. 6 months before Rachel's death. She opened another tab. Searched. Boston Medical Center Medication Error Investigation 2022. The results loaded slowly. Investigation. Delayed pending corporate review. Chambers. Pharmaceutical disputed findings. Legal proceedings postponed. Final report. Released April 18th. 1 month after Rachel Chambers died. The room was spinning. If Emma's report had been investigated immediately, if David Chambers hadn't used his legal team to bury it, delay it, discredit her, the protocol would have been changed. The error would have been caught. Rachel Chambers would be alive. Emma had tried to save David's daughter 3 years before he destroyed her, and his choice to protect corporate interests instead of patients had killed his own child. He didn't know. He had no idea, but he needed to. Emma stood on shaking legs, walked to her closet, pulled out a box she hadn't opened in 3 years. Inside, copies of everything. The original incident report, the medication error details, the timeline, the evidence David's lawyers had tried to bury. She kept it all, every document, everything, every piece of proof, because somewhere deep inside, past the fear and exhaustion and defeat, Dr. Emma Rodriguez still believed the truth mattered, even when it destroyed you. Especially then. Tomorrow, she would tell David Chambers who she really was, would watch his world shatter the way hers had shattered, would force him to face the consequences of valuing his empire over human life. And if it destroyed what little remained of her life, at least Rachel Chambers would finally have justice. At least the truth would finally be told. Marcus Webb appeared in David's office at 8:47 a.m., holding a manila folder like it contained live explosives. Sir, you asked for Emma Rodriguez's complete background file. David barely looked up from his morning emails. Just leave it on the desk. Sir, Marcus's voice was strained. You need to read this now. Something in his tone made David pause. His assistant was unflappable, had worked for him 15 years through corporate battles, hostile takeovers, personal crises. Marcus didn't rattle easily. David took the folder. The first page was a hospital insurance cross-reference. Routine. Then his eyes caught a notation. Previous medical license #MA 47832. Status revoked. Court seal lifted per FOI request. His blood went cold. Keep reading, Marcus said quietly. David flipped the page. Dr. Emma Catherine Rodriguez. Emergency Medicine. Boston Medical Center. 2018 to 2022. Johns Hopkins Medical School. Graduated summa cum laude. License revoked January 2022 following ethics investigation related to... The words blurred. David read them again. Again. Whistleblower complaint filed September 2021. Chambers Pharmaceutical Group litigation. Wrongful termination lawsuit. Settlement negotiations collapsed. License revocation finalized January 2022. The folder slipped from his hands. Papers scattering across mahogany. It's her, Marcus said unnecessarily. The doctor from the whistleblower case. The one who tried to expose the medication error at Boston Medical. The one our legal team. Get out. David's voice was barely a whisper. Sir, get out. Marcus fled. David sat in the silence, staring at the scattered papers. Emma Rodriguez's face stared back from an ID badge photo. Younger, bright-eyed, wearing scrubs with a stethoscope. Dr. Emma Rodriguez, emergency medicine. The woman who'd saved his grandson. The woman whose career he destroyed. His hands shook as he gathered the papers. Read every page. The incident report she'd filed. The medication error she'd detailed. The investigation his legal team had delayed, buried, discredited. Dr. Marcus Webb's name appeared repeatedly. David's friend. His pharmaceutical company's advisory board member. The ethics violations leveled against Emma, fabricated. The patient privacy breaches, manufactured. The claims of emotional instability, lies constructed by lawyers he'd personally hired. They destroyed an innocent woman to protect corporate partnerships. David stumbled to his desk drawer, pulled out the photograph he kept hidden beneath quarterly reports. Rachel, his daughter, smiling in her own medical scrubs. First day of residency. Died March 17th. Post-surgical complications. Boston Medical Center. His hands fumbled for his phone. Marcus, get me Rachel's complete medical records. Now. Sir, those are. Now. The files arrived within the hour, sent to his encrypted email. David opened them with trembling fingers. Rachel's final hospitalization. Post-surgical infection. Medication prescribed by Dr. Marcus Webb. David's vision grade. The medication combination listed was complex. He wasn't a doctor, couldn't fully understand the pharmacology. But one notation jumped out. Fatal drug interaction discovered post-mortem. Investigation pending. Investigation pending. In March 2022, David grabbed Emma's incident report from the scattered papers. Read the date. September 22nd, 2021. 6 months before Rachel died. His daughter's medical file contained the investigation report, finally released in April 2022, 1 month too late. The findings: medication protocol error at Boston Medical Center. Dr. Webb's prescribing privileges suspended. Hospital policy changed. And buried in the footnotes. Initial whistleblower complaint filed September 2021 by Drive E. Rodriguez. Investigation delayed pending litigation review. The room tilted. Emma Rodriguez had tried to expose the error that would kill his daughter, had filed a report, had fought, had screamed about it. And David's legal team, hired to protect his pharmaceutical partnerships, his corporate interests, his relationship with Dr. Webb, had buried that report, delayed the investigation, attacked her credibility, destroyed her career. For 6 months, the error continued unchecked, until it killed Rachel. David's daughter was dead because he'd valued his empire over patient safety. Dead because a young doctor's warning had been silenced to protect his corporate interests. Dead because the truth had been sacrificed for profit. And that same doctor, unemployed, destitute, with every reason to hate him, had thrown herself in front of a van to save his grandson. The question returned with devastating clarity. Why would you risk your life for a stranger? He understood now, because Emma Rodriguez was a doctor, not in title anymore. He'd stolen that from her, but in her soul. She'd taken an oath. First, do no harm. And unlike him, unlike his lawyers, unlike everyone who'd chosen convenience over principle, Emma had actually meant it. She'd saved Tyler because that's who she was. That's who she'd always been. Even after David had destroyed her, even knowing who he was, even when she had every reason to let his grandson die. David grabbed his coat, his car keys. Marcus appeared in the doorway, alarmed. Sir, where are you? I need to fix this. Sir, it's been 3 years. The case is closed. She signed the settlement. She refused the settlement. And even if she hadn't, David's voice cracked. She saved my grandson, Marcus. After what we did to her, she saved his life. I need to face her. I need to. He didn't know how to finish that sentence. Apologize? Confess? Beg forgiveness for sins that had killed his own daughter? What words existed for this? David drove to Emma's address, listed in the background report as a studio apartment in a neighborhood he'd never entered. The kind of place people landed when they'd lost everything. Because of him. He climbed the stairs to her third-floor apartment, knocked on the door. It opened. Emma Rodriguez stood there. And now David saw what he'd missed before. The intelligence in her eyes. The competence in her posture. The ghost of who she'd been before he destroyed her. "I know who you are," he said. Emma didn't flinch, just nodded slowly, stepped back to let him in. "I was wondering when you'd figured out." Emma's apartment was brutal honesty. Poverty in 400 square feet. David took it in with horror. The mattress on the floor, the flickering overhead bulb, the space heater struggling against December cold. This was where she'd lived for 3 years, while he'd resided in a mansion. "So you know," Emma said quietly, closing the door behind him. No fear in her voice now, just exhaustion. "Dr. Emma Rodriguez, the whistleblower, the woman your lawyers destroyed." "Emma, don't." She held up a hand. "Don't apologize yet. You haven't heard everything." She walked to a cardboard box, pulled out a folder thick with documents, handed it to him. "September 22nd, 2021, she said, her voice clinically detached. "I filed an incident report about medication protocol errors at Boston Medical Center. Dr. Marcus Webb was prescribing fatal drug interactions. I documented 3 cases, predicted more deaths if the protocol wasn't changed." David opened the folder, hands shaking. "Your legal team buried my report," Emma continued. "Delayed the investigation for 6 months while they discredited me, called me emotionally unstable, manufactured ethics violations, destroyed my medical license. I didn't know. You signed off on it." Her control finally cracked. "Your signature is on every settlement offer, every legal motion, every document that destroyed my career. You didn't bother to know because I was irrelevant. An inconvenient young doctor threatening your pharmaceutical partnership with Dr. Webb." David couldn't meet her eyes. "You're right. Your daughter died March 17th, 2022, Emma said, and her voice broke. 6 months after I filed that report. 6 months your legal team spent burying the truth instead of investigating it. Rachel Chambers died from exact medication error I tried to expose." The folder slipped from David's hands. "If you'd investigated immediately, if you'd valued patient safety over corporate interests, the protocol would have been changed, and Rachel would still be alive." David's legs gave out. He sank onto her single folding chair, head in his hands. "Oh God, I tried to save your daughter before I ever knew who she was," Emma whispered. "Before you destroyed me, and you chose protecting your empire over protecting her." Silence stretched between them like broken glass. When David finally looked up, tears streaked his face. "Why did you save Tyler?" Emma's laugh was bitter. "You asked me that in the hospital. I couldn't answer then. Can't really answer now. You had every reason to let him die. He's 7 years old." Emma's voice rose. "He's a child, an innocent child. I don't punish children for their grandfather's sins. But I deserve punishment." "Probably." Emma sat on her mattress, suddenly looking as exhausted as David felt. "But that's not my job anymore. I'm not a doctor. I'm not a judge. I'm just a waitress trying to survive the consequences of telling the truth." David pulled out his phone, hands shaking, pulled up a photo, showed her Rachel, smiling in graduation robes, medical school, the same pride Emma must have felt once. "I carry this every day," he said hoarsely. Her last photo, taken 2 weeks before she died. She was so proud to be a doctor, so determined to help people. Emma's eyes filled with tears. "She would have admired you," David continued, "for what you tried to do, for refusing to stay silent. She was like that too, principled, stubborn, unwilling to compromise on patient care." His voice broke. "And I failed her I failed you both. Because I was more concerned with protecting my empire than protecting the values she believed in. David, if you'd known who Tyler was, he interrupted. If you'd known he was my grandson, would you have let him die? The question hung between them. Emma met his eyes. I'll never know, because unlike you, Mr. Chambers, I didn't have the luxury of choosing between a life and my pride. My body reacted before my mind could, because that's what doctors do. We run toward danger, not away from it. Even when we're not doctors anymore. Even when we've lost everything. Even when the person we're saving doesn't deserve our sacrifice. I don't deserve it, David agreed. I don't deserve your heroism or your mercy, or... He pulled an envelope from his coat pocket, hands shaking as he placed it on her mattress. This won't fix anything. Won't bring back your career or Rachel or the 3 years you spent suffering because of my choices. But it's a start. Emma didn't touch the envelope. What is it? A confession, David said quietly. Everything. The buried investigation, the manufactured ethics violations, the timeline that proves your report could have saved Rachel. My testimony, signed and notarized, enough to get your medical license reinstated. Emma stared at the envelope like it might explode. I'm stepping down as CEO tomorrow, David continued, establishing a foundation in Rachel's name for medical transparency and whistleblower protection. I can't fix what I've done, but I can stop doing it. And I can make sure no one else gets destroyed for telling the truth. Silence. Then Emma picked up the envelope with trembling hands, opened it, read the first page, and broke down sobbing. 3 years of grief and rage and exhaustion finally released. David didn't move, didn't try to comfort her, just sat there bearing witness to the destruction he'd caused. When she could speak again, Emma's voice was raw. This doesn't make us even. I know. Rachel's still dead. I know. And I still hate you for what you did. I know. David stood, moved toward the door. But maybe someday you'll hate me a little less. And maybe that's more than I deserve. Emma didn't answer. As David reached for the doorknob, she spoke one last time. Tyler asked me in the hospital why I did it, why I saved him. Her voice was barely a whisper. I told him because every life matters. Because children deserve to grow up. Because heroes don't need a reason. David turned back. But the truth? Emma met his eyes. I saved him because I took an oath once. And you can take away my license, my career, my entire life. But you can't take away who I am, who I've always been. A doctor, David said softly. A doctor, Emma agreed. Even when I'm not. 3 weeks later, the letter arrived on a Tuesday. Massachusetts Board of Registration in Medicine. Dr. Emma Catherine Rodriguez. License reinstatement hearing. Emma's hands shook as she read. Based on new testimony provided by David Chambers, CEO Emeritus of Chambers Pharmaceutical Group, and supporting evidence of falsified ethics violations, your request for license reinstatement hearing has been approved. Hearing scheduled January 15th. She read it 3 times. Couldn't quite believe the words were real. A second envelope contained a cashier's check. $500,000. Restitution for wrongful termination. Lost wages, legal fees, 3 years of destroyed life. And a handwritten note. This doesn't fix what I did, but maybe it helps you rebuild. DC. Emma stared at the check. More money than she'd seen in 3 years. Enough to pay off every debt. Start over. Breathe. She called David's office. His assistant, Marcus, answered. Tell him I'm declining the restitution payment, Emma said. Marcus sputtered. Ms. Rodriguez, that's... Tell him to establish a scholarship fund instead for healthcare workers who report violations and face retaliation. Full tuition, living expenses, legal fees. Fund it properly. $5 million minimum. That's my price. Silence. Then, I'll relay the message. The next call was to Boston General Hospital. Emma took a deep breath. Dr. Chin? This is Emma Rodriguez. I'm calling about the attending physician position you mentioned. January 15th, medical board hearing. David Chambers sat in the back row of the hearing room, unnoticed. He watched Emma, Dr. Rodriguez, present her case with the precision of a surgeon. Watched the board members' faces change as they reviewed the evidence of manufactured violations, buried reports, corporate interference. Watched them vote unanimously to reinstate her medical license. Emma's eyes found his across the room. She nodded once. Not forgiveness. Not quite, but acknowledgement. Recognition that he'd done the right thing. Finally, after doing so much wrong, it was more than he deserved. 1 week later, the Rachel Chambers Foundation for Medical Transparency opened its doors with a $7 million endowment. The Whistleblower Protection Scholarship had received 40 applications in its first week. David stood in the foundation's lobby, staring at Rachel's portrait, his daughter, forever 34, forever smiling. She'd be proud, Eleanor said softly, appearing beside him. She'd be alive if I'd listened 3 years ago. Yes, his mother didn't sugarcoat it. But you're listening now. That has to count for something. David didn't answer, just stood there, looking at his daughter's face, carrying the weight of lessons learned too late. Emma Rodriguez spent 3 years invisible, 3 years paying the price for telling the truth, 3 years drowning in poverty while the man who destroyed her lived in a mansion. But here's what matters. She didn't wait for rescue. She didn't stay silent. She saved a child's life, even knowing it might expose her to the person who destroyed her. She made a choice that forced the universe to answer. And sometimes, not always, but sometimes, the universe answers correctly. Drop below. What would you have done in Emma's position? Revealed yourself immediately, or stayed hidden to protect what little you had left? Your answer says everything about how you navigate power. Also, drop your country. This story is reaching millions globally, and I want to see where truth seekers like you are watching from. The invisible deserves to be seen. That's why this channel exists. Don't forget that. Dr. Emma Rodriguez walked through Boston General Hospital in Navy scrubs, stethoscope around her neck. First day back in the ER. First time wearing her medical school ring openly since it all fell apart. She turned a corner into the pediatric wing and stopped. David Chambers stood there with Tyler, both wearing volunteer badges, delivering stuffed animals to young patients. Foundation work. Redemption through action. Their eyes met across the hallway. David nodded. Tyler waved enthusiastically. Emma smiled, small, cautious, but genuine, and waved back. No words needed. Some stories end with revenge. This one ended with something harder. 2 broken people choosing to rebuild. Separately, carrying their scars, but no longer drowning in the wreckage. Sometimes that's the only justice possible. Sometimes it's enough